we can move this out of the way. Wow, people are still rolling. Huh? Oh. You're still working on it. You're still putting them out. She was well loved. Okay. We're going to do round 2. This one is the celebration. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fredericksburg on this lovely, almost wintry morning. My name is Reverend Doug McCusker, and I use he, him pronouns. We have all gathered here in person and some online to pay our respects for our dearly departed friend and family member, Natalie Carol Suter Davis. We are together in this moment as a community woven together by Natalie's life. Now, Natalie died last Saturday in the early morning hours. Her remains were buried earlier this morning at the Oak Hill Cemetery. And we are here now to honor, celebrate, and grieve the loss of her life. This coming together to honor the life of one of our own is an instinct, certainly a human instinct, but more universal than just an instinct of our species alone. There are reports of what might be called badger funerals, a badger dragging the body of its mate to an appropriate site, digging a grave with their claws, and then with the other badgers who have assembled, slowly circling the grave, and together uttering a low moaning sound like a dirge. Elephants, crows, and whales have all been observed gathering together to protest the death of one of their own. The naturalist Lauren Isley, in an essay, The Judgment of the Birds, told of such an experience that went beyond animals protesting death to seemingly proclaiming life. Isley recounts a time when he was deep in the woods, and by chance he heard a cry from a bird. In a clearing, he saw a large raven with a nestling squirming in its beak. The cries were coming from the nestling's parents as they circled around the murdering bird. And Isley writes, the sighing died. It was then I saw the judgment. It was the judgment of life against death. I will never see it again, so forcefully presented. I will never hear it again in notes so tragically prolonged. For in the midst of a protest, they forgot the violence. There, in the clearing, the crystal notes of a song sparrow lifted hesitantly in the hush. And finally, after painfully fluttering, another took the song, and then another, the song passing from one bird to another, doubtfully at first, as though some evil thing were being slowly forgotten. Until suddenly they took heart and sang from many throats joyously, together as birds are known to sing. They sang because life is sweet and sunlight beautiful. They sang under the brooding shadow of the raven. In simple truth, they had forgotten the raven, for they were the singers of life and not of death. Though we are gathered in the shadow of death, and we may protest in our hearts that one of us who we have known and loved has died, let us be singers of life. Because weighing life and death, we too conclude that life is sweet and sunlight is beautiful.
Good morning, beloveds. My name is Roddy Bell Shelton Biggs. I use they, them pronouns, and serve as intern minister here at this morning, our child's lighting word. Come into this circle of grief. Come into this circle of compassion. Come into this circle of memory. Come into this circle of love. We call the ancestors who are with us in spirit. We call into our circle the loved ones who could not be here today. We call into this circle and we draw into this circle of life. As we light our chalice, the chalice brings peace and connection for a moment of loss.
Rise and turn to 123, your hymnal. The words will be on the screen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the rise in the sea, move in the hand, give life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Natalie.
Yes. Christmas. Will be fine.
Take a deep breath, dear ones. Hear these words for our reading, titled Blue Christmas, this too belongs. The sound of rain, not cheerful songs. A quiet rocking chill, not traditions this season. The early sunset, not dancing lights. Lost, tender heart, hollow soul, heavy days. Grief is welcome, a sacred part of mourning, of weeping amidst the celebration. This too belongs. This too is holy. It binds us to our ancestors, the earth, the stars, yet still. A steaming mug of tea warms the belly. A dog wags its tail, and the cat purrs. There are laughter and tears, sometimes both. Besides the joy, this too belongs. Sharing human suffering is connection. Hearts like stones in the hand held, grief and light intertwined. This too belongs.
How do you encapsulate 79 years of life well lived into a few minutes of remembrance? Well, you can't. Especially someone as vibrant and accomplished as Natalie. The best you can do is spark some memories and ignite some feelings about the beautiful soul that we knew and loved. I knew Natalie as her minister for 9 years in the twilight of her life. Many of you knew her a lot longer as her husband, brother, daughter, son, aunt, grandmother, great-grandmother, friend, daughters, granddaughters, neighbors, co-workers, and fellow congregants. She was connected to so many people throughout her life. Within our hearts are stories of how loving, wise, playful, and compassionate Natalie was to everyone around her. Once you met her, you never forgot her. She wasn't loud or forceful, but she left an impression with her humble presence and her beautiful smile. Oh, that beautiful smile. It was a window into her spirit. There in her smile was a grace that seemed to captivate you. It was like she was dancing through life, always in the flow of a silent song. She and Ray actually met at a dance. They were with different dates. But when she saw Ray, she knew who her dance partner for life would be. One of my earliest memories of Natalie and Ray was at a fundraiser dance for Mental Health America. I don't know, back in 2015. I marveled at how smooth and graceful they were on the dance floor. She had already been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but you wouldn't have known it watching them dance. Oh, how she loved to dance. I always remember her amazing hospitality, right? Whenever I came to visit her, she wanted to make sure that I had something to eat and drink. Even when she was struggling with Parkinson's and dementia, she would go into the kitchen and try to rustle up something for me. I couldn't stop her. Her garden parties and Kentucky Derby parties were legendary. She made sure that you left her parties full. She never fixed a little amount of food. It was go big or go home for Natalie. Not only was she an amazing cook and baker, but she had an artistic eye for style and balance. For a long time, she was the resident florist for this fellowship. Most Sundays, she would bring a fragrant and beautiful arrangement of flowers to the church from her own garden for our altar table. And even when she couldn't work in the garden, she converted a room into a nursery where she would lovingly take care of plants as if they were her children. Natalie was a Virginia girl through and through. She was born and raised in Harrisonburg. She traveled to many places as a military spouse. But when it came time to settle down, it had to be Virginia. She and Ray moved to the Fredericksburg area around 1974 when Ray was assigned to Quantico. But it didn't matter how far away it was. Their family would make the trek over the mountains to Harrisonburg as many times as they could, probably several times a month. She loved the mountains. I guess you could say that she never left the mountains in her heart. They always seemed to call her back. In our welcome reading today, you heard a story about birds singing for joy, even in the midst of their sorrow. Natalie loved the song of birds. She was a birder even before it was a thing. When she was young, she attended a bird camp at Massanetta Springs, and she was hooked. She even helped raise canaries with her father. Oh, how she loved birds. She could identify birds by their appearance and their songs. Even when a lot of her memory seemed to fade, she could still identify birds. She fed them in her backyard and had epic battles with squirrels to make sure that there was always enough feed for her beloved birds. People mattered to her also. She dedicated her life to one of service. She got married after only one semester of college, and then became a housewife and a mother. While Ray was serving in Vietnam, she was serving her family stateside, teaching them to be good people who served others. Even with all the travel as a military spouse, she attended 5 different colleges, eventually getting her bachelor's and master's degree at the University of Mary Washington. She became a high school English teacher here in Stafford, serving her students as a role model who engaged their minds and taught them to harness their imaginations. Throughout her working career, she served as the executive director of the Rappahannock Council of Domestic Violence at Empower House. She also started the Office for Voluntary Assistance in Stafford County and served as the Stafford County Ombudsman until she retired. Perhaps as her last and probably most lasting service to the world, she participated in numerous studies at UVA and VCU for the treatment and cure of Parkinson's disease. She always took care of her body and maintained a healthy diet. Maybe the experimental treatments and her positive outlook on life bought her a few extra years of life. But her real motivation was to help others long after she was gone. It's not the quantity of years that we live, but rather the quality of the ones we have been given that truly matters. And I would say that Natalie made the most of the time that she had on this plane of existence. She raised 2 children who also dedicated their lives to serving their community. She was very generous with her time, her talents, and her treasure. And she seemed to be genuinely happy, especially in the company of others. Natalie once gave me a book called The Holy Man by Susan Trott. It was a beautiful story about all the people who came to see a guru on the top of a hill, and along the journey, how they found the good in their lives that they hadn't seen before. One lady in the story, Eleanor, came to see the holy man full of terror and anxiety about dying. When he answered the door, she said, "I've come to see the holy man." And he replied, "If you look on everyone that you meet as a holy person, you will be happy." That was Natalie. Kind, brave, compassionate, and happy. She danced through life, seeing the holy in others. She fought the good fight against Parkinson's, and she left things better than she found it. Her soul has returned home, reunited with the oneness of everything. May we hear in the bird song, Natalie. See Natalie in the mountain dew. Smell her in the fragrant flowers. And taste her in the delicious slice of apple pie. She will be forever a part of us in death as she was in life. For we all are all better for having danced with sweet Natalie, one of the holiest people I've ever known.
Life really is like a dance sometimes, and Natalie loved to dance. So it seems fitting that our next reading come from the Gray Hymnal. You may know it as a song, but today I'm going to read the lyrics to you. Song 311, Let It Be a Dance We Do. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let the dancing song be heard, play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing boats. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Lone to follow, lone to lead, feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin, let your body learn to bend, and like a willow in the wind, let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die, a time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times, the bad times too, let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark, there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sun shine, let the sun shine, let it rain. Show the laughter, bear the pain, and round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Natalie touched all of us one way or another. If you feel so moved that you would like to share a real short reflection, a story, tell us something about how you remember Natalie. We have a microphone. I'll come and pass it to you, and you can share this reflection with everyone else. Do I have any takers? Can anyone think of a story?
Thank you. I'm Paula Barnes. Everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I visited Natalie several times at Spring Arbor, and it was before I had a knee replacement, and she asked me to push her, please, out in the garden. And I said, Natalie, I'm not strong enough to push you out in the garden. She, Southern Belle as she is, very sassily told me, I'm not asking you to jump over a fence. I just want you to push the wheelchair. Well, and Ray and I got a giggle after that too, but after my knee replacement, we did go out late summer, and she patted the flowers in that little garden just right off their activity room, and we talked about the flowers. And one of the last things that made Natalie a big smile when I was with her late summer, and I told her I saw the Joe Pye weed out along the highway, and she turned her head and gave me that glorious smile that you had shared. So I think we need to all figure out when to plant some wild Joe Pye weed. Just throw it out the car window, and then we'll think of her every time we see it. Because there's not as much as there used to be, so it's up to us.
Oh, next.
I'm Caroline Carver. Just a short memory. Natalie and I taught together at Stafford High School. I just lasted a year. But my daughter got married shortly after that. And Ida Ray had had a wedding and had a beautiful dress. And Mary had looked everywhere for a dress. And Natalie offered the dress. And she made it, I'm sure Ida Ray made a beautiful bride too, because it was lovely. And it was so thoughtful of Natalie and the kind of thing, she would do. Anyway.
Thank you. Could you pass this?
I'm Lee DeLugas, and Natalie was my English teacher in high school. She is the reason that I know all that I know about grammar. She's the reason that I'm able to write with clarity and simplicity. She was a fantastic teacher. Never had a better English teacher, even in college, even. And when I graduated from college and came home to find a job, that was back when you used to look in the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
To see what jobs were available. I saw a job opening for the court advocate at the Rappahannock Council on Domestic Violence. And so I applied because I had a BA in psychology. And I got a phone call, and it was from Natalie. And she said, hey, Lee, I picked you. I know you. I picked your name out of the pile of resumes, and I'd love to have you come interview. And I did go to work there for Natalie. She ended up leaving as the director while I was there, but she's the reason that I have been so involved in social justice all these years. She ignited my passion for helping other people and for working towards justice and fairness in this country. So I'm so pleased to be able to be here today and honor her, and we've lost a good one.
I'm Becky Guy, and I worked in many situations where I was associated with Natalie. I deeply appreciate all of these wonderful citations today of her personal characteristics. I would just like to add one. Natalie listened to people with her whole body. her body language, her leaning forward, and her attentiveness. And she was able to do so much good work because of that characteristic.
When my family had not long been in Fredericksburg back in the 90s, we decided to check out this weird place on Caroline Street called the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And I think shortly after we'd gone once or twice, but they had the, I think, a Thanksgiving dinner. And so we sat at this long table with Natalie and Ray, and Ray was his usual taciturn self, you know, friendly, but, you know, Ray. And Natalie just struck up conversation with me and my wife, and I remember the conversation because you know, it was one of those moments where you're not really sure if there's a place for you, you know, in this new, this this church, and someone, you know, opens themselves up to you and reaches out and shares. I remember talking. I was just sharing with them. She was talking about, of course, connecting with me. She knew I taught at the college, that she was working on a master's. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, she was doing research on, or a paper on the beings of Egypt, Maine, this old novel from back in the day. And I just remember just having this lively conversation about literature and Don Glover and, you know, and just feeling this warmth and welcome that had us coming back. And in many ways, I think our connection, which is now a 30-plus year connection to the UU, at least a good part of that, you know, is so many thanks to Natalie and to Ray, who've been just friends forever. Thank you.
I'm only doing this because it's convenient. You're right next to me. This is Lori Zakowski. I have a couple of memories of Natalie and Ray, and for one thing, her cutting garden was amazing. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure some of you saw it, but I had big garden envy. And her baking, I still make her coconut cake, and I adore it, and will always think of her. But my favorite memories of Ray and Natalie are being at Susie and going to Serendipity early when they would play the older music and just sit and have a drink and watch them dance. It was so much fun. And then, of course, in the afternoons, we had impromptu UUFF cocktail hours, and Ray always brought out some kind of concoction, and it was just lovely. It's some of my favorite memories of Susie, actually. So, yeah.
So passing the mic on down the row here. Yes, well, my name's Bill Brooks, and one of my favorite memories of Natalie, Linda and I were neighbors of Ray and Natalie in Hartwood, and when, as a member of the UU, I knew her touch with floral arrangements, and so we asked her to do the flowers for our wedding, and she was very excited about that, and she invited us over to the house so we could go through the garden and decide what we wanted to use, and just her lovely self as she showed us, you know, this flower and that flower, and as a gardener myself, I really appreciated that. What I remember from the arrangements was we had a large back porch, and the stoop went off to the back part of the house, part of the yard, and we got married in a circle down in the bottom. And but she had created two floral arrangements that she put on each side of those steps. One was an old ragged boot was the vase, and that was me working in the garden. And the other one was sort of a Cinderella slipper, which was Linda. And it was just that touch that she had that touch, and it was such a joy.
Calendar. I worked at Stafford County at the time Natalie was there. We shared a small office space, and when she first came in, she was very reserved, very professional. I kept to myself. But one day I shared with Natalie a problem I was having, and all of a sudden, she was my best friend, caring for me for the rest of the time that I worked there next to her.
Nice. Thank you. Any others? Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, lots of things have been going through my head this morning, but the one I wanted to share was when they still lived, before they moved to Spring Arbor, I took Natalie a few times shopping. I thought I was doing it to give Ray a break because I know how hard it is to be a caregiver. But when we would go shopping, once she got out of the car and began moving with that walker way too far out in front of her to be safe and way too fast, that woman could move, and she moved until she died. She was still moving and fighting against that Parkinson's.
I'll share a story that Kit shared with me, as if it's okay, about the songs that we used today. The two hymns that we're playing, just a couple of days before she passed, she was Kit was visiting her at Spring Arbor and in the memory unit there, memory care place, and there was a music therapy going on, and Natalie's head was down. She just wasn't, it was like she wasn't checked in, she was just there. And Kit noticed this and asked the music therapist, could you play Spirit of Life? And then the lady looked it up on her. It's a nice thing, right? You can just pull your phone out, look it up. She started playing and singing it, and immediately Natalie sprung up and paid attention, and her whole body was engaged. And so, not to let that go away, Kit asked for Blue Boat Home, which is another favorite here at the fellowship, which we'll be singing later. And again, she was attentive and engaged and present. And so we thought we would honor her presence with those songs today.
Take a deep breath, dear ones. Enter into a moment of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Perhaps you choose to close your eyes. Maybe you place your feet firmly on the floor, connected with the earth, feeling the rhythm of the earth beneath your feet. Maybe your eyes focus softly on the flaming chalice behind me, or maybe something still not named. Call to memory all the stories of Natalie that have been shared. All those stories that have been held in the private places in our hearts, too tender, too personal to be named. All the stories of love, those when Natalie held you in times of grief and pain. Perhaps those when you held Natalie in times of grief and pain. Join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, of love, unfolding mystery known by many and no names at all. Source of wonder, source of love. Be with each and every person here today, and those who cannot be here, whose Natalie's life touched in ways that we may never know. Be with each person as they come to bear the pain, come to let it be a dance we do. As each of us ask the other, can I have this dance with you? As we learn to follow, as we learn to lead, knowing that a child is born and the old must die. Let it be a dance we do. Let us be okay with it being a dance we do. Ashe, Amen, and blessed be.
When you are troubled about death, or when you hurt, or when you're hurt over your loss is too great, or when the shadow of death casts a pallor over your spirit, remember these words. Go forth under the open sky and listen to nature's teachings, while all around, earth and her waters and the depths of air, comes a still voice calling you home. Within the circle of our lives, we dance to the rhythm of the years. Within the circle of the years, we sing to the changing of the seasons. Within the circle of the seasons, we flow within the cycles of the moon. Within the circle of the moon, we love and are loved. As we extinguish our chalice, we illuminate the circle of life with the glow of the flame that remains within us, so that we may go forth with the healing peace of connection. Please rise as you are willing and able, and join us for the final song, 1064, 1064 in the Teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my tired heart can sing.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today to honor Natalie, Carol, Suter, Davis, to be here to share these stories, to hold one another as we go through the emotions that are natural when we lose a loved one, someone who touched us so deeply. We will be having a reception out in the foyer afterwards. The family invites you to come and join them and to keep telling those stories and to keep Natalie in your heart. Thank you.